Hey guys, it's me the American, and today we have the Sig Sauer P220, a legendary pistol that has lasted over 40 years of use all over the globe in the most unfavorable conditions imaginable. Now for the history of the 220 is actually a quite simple reason why the 220 was created. It was actually developed by Sig, which is German for Swiss Industrial Company, and Sauer and Son. They actually got together on a partnership and they said, hey, can we make a replacement for the Sig 210, which was the current Swiss arm at the time, because the Swiss 210 was actually a little bit expensive to manufacture. Now, in 1975, when this pistol was debuted, Switzerland adopted the Sig 220 in 9mm for their military and police units. This Sig Sauer 220 is actually in 45, which I will get to here in a second on why the caliber is 45 instead of 9mm. Now they are imported into the United States under the name of the Browning BDA, the original first-gen models, which featured a heel magazine release. Now I don't have a heel magazine release on mine, but I do have the button release. The heel was actually changed to this button because a lot of American shooters, they believe that, well, the button is vastly superior to any other magazine release on the market. Now, this is somewhat true for some shooters, but for me it's a little bit different. I actually prefer a paddle style. A little bit of my input there, but the heel release was actually a really great idea. You could carry it concealed in a concealable holster, and at the time they were all just leather. You didn't have any kydex to, protect the button or whatnot. And if you carry this concealed, you do have a chance of hitting the button, but it's not that big of an issue if you use the correct holster. Now, the reason why this is in 45 caliber, this is actually a Gen 2 Sig Sauer 220. It is in 45 because the pistol, the 45 caliber, is just so, it's super popular in the United States. The 1911 was a big contender for the Sig 220 at the time, and many people said, well, why can't just buy a 1911 instead of a Sig Sauer 220? So the Sig Sauer in America had a lot of competition. Now in Switzerland, on the other hand, they had many pistols in 9mm, and the 9mm is just as popular in the European countries as the 45 to Americans. This is a second gen model, as I mentioned earlier. The second gen is very easily identifiable by the button here, and see the folded slide. This is actually a folded piece of metal with a welded guide right here, and you can see the breech block cut out here. Now the first gen is the Browning BDA style with the heel release, different mainspring housing, which cannot take E2 grips, and on top of that, it has a decocker that is just slightly different than the Gen 2 model. Now the Gen 3 model, which is the most current Sig Sauer 220 iteration, would have the standard button release. Of course, it won't have your heel release there, but it has the new rails, which can be Sig proprietary or the 1913 pink and titty, and a 100% milled slide on top. Now the milled slide, it adds a little bit more weight, and I prefer the second gens because of the weight issue. This is actually an aluminum. It's like a super aluminum frame. It's really strong aluminum, guys. I mean, you really won't be able to break that or crack it. I've shot over, oh man, let's go ahead and say at least 8,000 rounds through this and this original barrel here, and I have not noticed any cracks in the frame whatsoever. So this pistol has withstood the test of time as one of the most reliable 45 caliber handguns on the market. The 1911 is pretty reliable. With hollow points, some 1911s cannot be that reliable, but I do hear that there are many 1911s that can run hollow points just as well. The Sig Sauer 220, on the other hand, is very reliable with anything that you shove in it. I mean, you could shove dirt, grease, grime, crud, anything into a Sig Sauer 220 and it will still keep shooting. These things are pretty much tanks with a tiny trigger for your finger. Now one topic I did want to talk about for just a few seconds is the internal versus external argument. Internal extractors have been pretty reliable over the years, but Sig Sauer lately in their Gen 3 220s have now added an external extractor. Now mine is of the internal variety. Go ahead and pop that open for you real quick. Remember, it's clear. You can see the internal extractor right there. That's a little tough to see on the camera, but you can definitely see it sticking up right there where the chamber faces. Now, I haven't had any problems with the extractor breaking or tweaking or any type of failure. I just clean it out every once in a while, and it's very, very reliable. Gen 1 SIGs will have an internal extractor. Gen 2 SIGs will also have the internal extractor, but Gen 3s have been changed to the short external extractors. On to the operations segment of the Sig Sauer P220. First up, the pistol operates with a locked breech short recoil design. The barrel and the slide actually move back a couple of millimeters locked together, and then it starts the recoil phase where the barrel actually tilts up away from the locking groove up here on top of the slide, and the pistol cycles back. Now remember, safety first, my friends. Always, before you handle a firearm, make sure it is safe to handle. Once it's completed the phase, the slide goes forward and it recocks your hammer for the next shot. Now, the firing pin block safety on this pistol is actually pretty similar to the Walther P38. They share a lot of similarities, and of course, you know, German design. Sig Sauer definitely had a lot of German influences in this Swiss pistol. Now, the double action pull on this pistol is about 14 pounds. It's not too bad compared to many other double actions on the market today. And the single action, mine actually breaks at around 5.5 pounds. So it's actually a very good single action for me anyways. I mean, I don't really like a glass breaker single action. I really like the heavier single actions because I just feel that it has a more positive let off. Now there's actually 4 safety features in this pistol. There's your decocker, which safely decocks the pistol. And of course, always point in a safe direction before you decock your firearm. Now, we also have the firing pin block inside of here. The firing pin block does not allow the pistol to be fired unless if the trigger is pulled. Also, it creates a block for the firing pin. The firing pin cannot move forward if it is accidentally dropped, like really hard on the rear, or if it's tossing around and somehow it gets thrown, the pistol will not go off. Also, the hammer itself, there's a small sear. You can't really see it inside, but there's a small sear that does not allow the hammer to hit that firing pin unless if the trigger is pulled. When you pull this trigger, there's a small sear that moves out of the way and the hammer is free to go forward. Last is the trigger bar disconnector. The trigger bar disconnector, there's actually a slot cut out inside of this slide, like on the very edge. Let me go ahead and take it apart real quick. I was going to take it apart later, but I want to show you guys. Now right here, see this slot right here? That actually allows this trigger bar to slide, there it is right there, to slide freely so that way the trigger can move the hammer. Now if the hammer's forward, see, like it does not, the hammer does not come back until that is free to move. Now if you push down on that, the trigger will not release the hammer until the slide is all the way at its rearward position and that the chamber is fully locked. So that right there is actually a really great design, and many pistols have that design featured nowadays as one of their extra safety precautions, because believe me, pistols, if a lot of the old school pistols that didn't have as many safeties, I mean, you could drop them and they would just go off. A lot of the times that the firing pins would get hit by the hammers, especially if dropped on the rear. And to be honest, all these safeties actually make a great pistol without the problems of external safeties. There's no external safeties whatsoever, so it keeps the pistol real flush, real trim for concealed carry. And on top of that, if there's no extra safeties to fumble around with if you're in a type of self-defense situation. In my case, I like to go hunting somewhat, and if a dangerous animal comes up on you, you don't want to be fumbling around with 4 or 5 different lever safeties and all this other stuff. Sig just likes to keep it real plain and simple, easy to use, and on top of that, really reliable. I've never had a failure to fire or any type of safety malfunction in my pistol whatsoever. The Sig P220 is offered in many different calibers, such as the 9x19, 38 Super, 45 ACP, 30 Luger, 9mm Steyr, and 22 LR. Most recently, the 10mm Auto was added to the large list of calibers noted. Now, a lot of those calibers have, pretty much dropped off of the face of the earth, as they say. They just weren't as popular, but Sig is really trying to push that 10mm Auto nowadays. I mean, it's a very nice cartridge, viable for self-defense, especially during hunting. And on top of that, in the Sig Sauer 220 frame, I mean, just to hear that it can take a 10mm Auto is great news to me. I'd love to shoot one day. Let's go ahead and talk more about the 45 ACP version. Here we have the standard original mag with the flat metal floor plate here. Let's go ahead and get a close-up of that. You can see the welded back. Has a really cool design there. Sig stamp. Holds 7 rounds. And it says 45 Auto on the back. Oh yeah. Now the second generation of mags, or the current generation, will be this right here that holds 8 rounds. Plastic foreplate. Go ahead and get a close-up of that there. This one's made by ACT. Sig Sauer also has their brand, which is the original brand, made with stainless steel instead of carbon steel. The backs of these are welded. You can see that weld line right there. But I have not had any problems with the ACT mag version. Very reliable, very sturdy, and they also switched the follower. Let me go and show you the differences. Here are the two followers. First follower right here is more, it's closer to the 1911 style of GI follower, and the newer follower is just a straight piece of plastic. Haven't had any problems with both feeding hollow points. They're both pretty reliable. And on top of that, I kind of like the straight version because it's a lot easier to press down, just to, press check. These, it's a little bit harder, to see if there's a whole bunch of grit and grime in there that needs a cleaning. Last mag I want to talk about is the 10 rounder. A lot of people have had mixed reviews about this one. See the 10 holes, witness holes, Sig Sauer 220, 45. You cannot see the weld line because it was ground really nicely. Made in Italy, with a plastic floor plate that is also easily removable, as the current 8 rounder. Straight follower. Now with steel cased ammunition I have run into problems with this magazine, but with brass case it usually runs about 99% of the time. I would not recommend it for extreme use, but for range use it is just fine. I mean, some people have had great experiences. Me, I've had really great experiences as well, but I will say that it is not 100% reliable as I would like. There are many accessories for the Sig 220 these days, such as night sights, new triggers, but the ones that I really liked the most were the E2 grips. The E2 grips are real slim, real trim, and on top of that they have a nice little bulge here for your hand. I mean, it's perfect. You get more trigger real estate because this curve right here is closer to the trigger, so your trigger finger has a lot more positive push on the trigger. Real slim, no screws needed, professional sandpaper look. I mean, anything on your hands, oil, grease, dirt, mud, grime, anything, it will not come out of your hands. On top of that, I've had these for years and they make a little bit of noise, but they're very positive and very accurate. I like them a lot. Also, another accessory that I purchased was a threaded barrel from Sig themselves. Sig 45 Auto. That's the hardness test there. Teflon tape, because I like to use my suppressor with the threaded barrel. This suppressor, which is the Gemtech GM45, which was purchased from Silencer Shop. I dealt with them recently and they are really great guys. I mean, great prices on suppressors. I really like them a lot. And the GM45 has that monocore. I mean, check that out. It's just one solid core. So that way there's a lot less chance of baffle strikes. And the sound reduction and the blowback is minimal. Sound reduction is great. I really like it a lot. They actually helped me buy that suppressor, and I've been nothing but impressed with it so far. Definitely, thanks to the Silencer Shop for being really great at what they do, selling suppressors and making the world a quieter place. In my testing that you will see, the shooting portion of the test, I will run the Sig 220 with ammunition, various ammunition that I picked up, and I will be running it with the suppressor. Sometimes suppressors can run the pistol a little bit harder than, you have a little bit more weight on the end of the barrel, the locking surfaces, and you have to have a little bit more power to cycle that, and that's what's so great about the GM45. It has the LID core right here, the piston. Now, the piston itself, if you have a Sig 220 Combat, an older combat model, the threads are actually real close to the slide on the Sig 220 Combat, and that can cause issues with cycling, or it can cause misalignment issues. If you are not sure if your Sig needs the correct piston or not, which it probably will, I suggest buying the GM45 piston 0.578 by 28 Sig. This is meant for the Sig Sauer itself, especially for the Sig 220 Combat model, the TB threaded barrel combat model. Now I think they have rectified that solution with their new threaded barrels. They're actually threaded, far enough, and they're threaded away from the slide far enough, and they're threaded long enough that you should not have that problem. But always give Gemtech a call, and they will be able to help you out every step of the way.
The sighting arrangement on my Sig 220 is of the dot and the dash setup. All you have to do is dot the eye, and the bullets will hit right in the center of the dot. With the GM45 attached, the sights were somewhat obstructed, but I didn't have any problem with accuracy by looking through the can. Now this can be remedied by taller suppressor high sights if you desire.
Disassembly and assembly of the Sig Sauer P220 is actually quite simple. First, of course, check your chamber. Clear. Nothing in the chamber. No magazine is needed. Slide the slide back. Push up on the slide release and it locks your slide. Rotate down the lever. That's the assembly lever. And ta-da! The pistol comes apart very easily. Guide rod, just kind of push up and out a little bit and pops out. Barrel lifts out. Extremely simple. Got some James Bond action going on there. Close-ups of the slide. You can see the internal extractor. There's a safety block right there for the firing pin. Quite awesome looking. Now to put back together the pistol, this is just for general maintenance. To take everything apart, I'm pretty sure that there's armory videos you can watch, but this is just for general maintenance. Disassemble it, put the barrel back, and it'll lock back in that right here between the locking block and the front lug. Push the spring into the spring guide, and it'll just snap right there. Extremely simple. Slide this back onto the rails, push all the way back, push up on the slide lock, rotate the lever up, and there you have it. The Sig Sauer P220 assembly is complete.
For the shooting portion, I decided to run the Sig plus the GM45 with the 3 of the cheapest brands of 45 ACP that I could find. My results are as follows. Accuracy tests were performed at 10 yards with the Winchester 45 Auto 230 grain service grade full metal jacket round. The GM45 is noted to lessen upward recoil considerably, while only adding about 5.5 ounces to the host firearm.
Clear.
For a control test, I used the same ammunition with the standard OEM barrel. This barrel has had 8,000 rounds fired through it by my hands, and on top of it all, I bought this pistol used.
Clear.
Our first contender for the reliability testings is the Monarch 45 ACP steel-cased 230 grain full metal jacket bullet. These are polymer coated, and they're made in the former Soviet Union, made in Russia. In the past, I've had issues with the steel-cased ammo in the Sig Sauer 10 rounders. They don't like to strip around from the top of the magazine, but in this instance, it fed just fine. Usually, there's loads of blowback with steel-cased ammo and suppressors, but the GM45 handled it very well. Russia, we have problem. The Monarch steel case has failed this test. It has jammed on the last 8-round magazine, and to be honest, I wouldn't recommend it for any other use but range use. I have heard over the years that aluminum cased ammunition can cause firearms to malfunction. So, next up on our list is the Federal Ammunition Champion aluminum cased 45 auto 230 grain full metal jacket round nose. Stripping off that first round from the magazine, it did extremely well. Fed perfect. This ammunition actually fared very well for the price, and on top of that, it had the least amount of blowback out of the 3 different types of ammunition that I tested. Overall, I'd have to say that this ammunition is Mayor approved.
Clear.
The last batch of ammo that we have to test is the Monarch brass-cased 45 ACP 185 grain jacketed hollow point. These have an exposed lead hollow point, and they are made in Serbia. Right at the starting line, we had an issue with one of the rounds nosediving in the feed ramp. This ammunition exhibited a little bit less blowback than the steel-cased ammo, but it was still apparent. Now, it did not hinder my ability to see or to use the firearm, which was actually pretty great. This ammunition performed well for the cost, but it may cause issues in your Sig 220.
Clear.
Well, there you have it, guys and gals. The Sig 220 is a real reliable 45 at a pretty great price these days. Now, I will say it's a little bit higher price than some other 45s out there, but it is very reliable, very quality built. Sig, they really know how to make a really nice pistol to last the generations, and I'm pretty sure that the Sig 220 will last another 40 years in the future because it's just such of a robust and excellent design. Mayor approved. Awesome. Also, I'd like to give a special thanks out to Silencer Shop. They were able to help me with the can. They told me that's exactly the can that you want for the Host pistol. And believe me, I am ecstatic. Shooting it was a dream. No blowback out of that GM45. And that Sig just handled it like a champ. Balances really nicely. And the weight on that GM is really light compared to other suppressors that I've shot in the past. I've shot many different suppressors in the past, but I'll tell you what, this is probably the most reliable one that I've ever shot. Even with that horrible ammo, I had a few failures, and it was probably ammo related. So definitely, +1 to Silencer Shop. If y'all guys need a suppressor, silencer, quieter, whatever you want to call it, if you need one, call up the Silencer Shop, and they'll be able to handle it, help you out, and they'll be able to take any question that you have to offer. Decibel readings, length, weight, pros and cons, even their own reviews of what they've tried. They have all the experience there to help you out, so give these guys a call today. Now, also special thanks to Gemtech. They were able to help me out with the special piston required for the Sig. And on top of that, they had a lot of knowledge as well about suppressors in general. Their suppressors, I've come out to find that they are very top-notch, and they've produced suppressors for the military, in the private sector, contractors. They've pretty much been in the suppressor world since day one. Awesome suppressors. I love that monocore design. You guys saw it earlier when I was debuting it. I really love it a lot, and definitely thanks to Gemtech for making a great suppressor. Also, if you like these videos, thumbs up my video. Say, Mayor Fuglycool, I like your video. Thumbs up. Hit the like button. Also, if you didn't like my videos, thumbs down. And tell me why you didn't in the comment box below. If you like the video, tell me, hey, Mayor Fuglycool, you're awesome. I love your videos. We want to see more. You can improve on a couple of things. Or, of course, if you disliked it, tell me what I need to improve on. Or if you just didn't like it, hey, tell me why, and hopefully I can fix it in the future. Also, subscribe. When you subscribe to the Mayor Fuglycool channel, you get to see all of the cool Mayor Fuglycool action, all the cool James Bond stuff, and with the new suppressors, hopefully I can make that a thing. It'll go straight to your desktop, laptop, PC, internet phone, anything pretty much. I mean, your TV. Any avenue that the internet has access to, it will go straight to there as soon as it is released. Now remember, as always, I'm back here this time. I shoot this stuff, so you don't have to. Well, actually, I'd really love you guys to shoot this. Awesome combination. The Sig Sauer Sig 220 itself is just a super reliable firearm, extremely iconic, has been used in many movies, and it's just one of the most beautiful firearms ever made today on planet Earth. I mean, it's so robust. Sig Sauer really hit a home run. Well, the Sig company in general has just hit a home run with this product. I mean, it is just so awesome. I love it to death, and I hope that it will get a lot more kudos in the future from future users. I mean, it's real reliable, extremely great. Alright guys, well, that's the Mayor. Thanks for watching.